talking. So you can go ahead. We're good.
Special meeting of Smithfield Town Council, January 5th, 2021. Madam Clerk, will you lead us in the prayer and the pledge, please?
Lord, assist with thy Holy Spirit of counsel all of those who are serving in positions of authority and responsibility. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Here.
Mr. Corriveau?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Here.
Mr. Vadenais?
Here.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here. Open forum pursuant to Rhode 4246-6. Is there anybody out there that wants to participate in open forum at this time?
I can't find the raise hands function, so
Go ahead, Jeff.
if I could. Thank you. Jeffrey Porter, 6 Country Way. I know that on this evening's agenda, the Halliwell Committee is going to be discussed. So once again, I'd just like to come forward and offer up my interest and my, I'd like to be considered for said committee to be part of the Halliwell project. I think I have a lot to contribute, being an architect and also having past experience with this in my field of work with all the public work that I've been doing over the past 5-6 years now. So that's all I got. So thank you.
Mike Clifford has his hand raised.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was off here at this point because I haven't had any sound up till now. Hello?
You're breaking in and out, Mike.
Yes, I had no audio at all at the beginning, so I don't know if you're under good and welfare at this point. I had wanted to speak under good and welfare.
Yes, we are.
And did I get called on yet? Because I had no.
Yes, you did. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'd like to know if under the MBRTF update, do you intend on, it appears to me, but looking at it quickly, that it appears to me that you plan on making a recommendation and appointing an architectural firm this evening for the police department study. And I wasn't prepared to speak to that tonight because I expected to see that delineated on the agenda when you were going to take that action. And instead of detailing on your agenda that you were anticipating appointing or selecting the architect, I believe it just simply says update, an update. And in the past, whenever you've made an appointment, it's a separate agenda. It's listed as, item A or B on that agenda item, appointment of, and then the details of it. And so if you're going to take an action this evening on that and try to actually appoint an architectural firm, I'd like the solicitor to share his opinion as to whether you're in compliance with the Open Meetings Act with the agenda description as it's listed. I know it said or other action, but it's an update. It did not say appointment, and in the past it always has. And again, I'm not prepared to speak. I was aware, I followed the MBRTF meetings, and I was aware they were going through a selection process. And I do have some questions about the architectural firm that's being appointed. But I haven't had time to do the research. I just quickly looked at the, played around with that clerk database and saw the letter that seems to suggest you're making an appointment. So that's my question to the solicitor. Is this legally on the agenda so that you can appoint?
Not even on the agenda. We're not doing it. There's no intention to do that. They do. That's not. No, I'm going to, I don't think that, I think there should be, I have to concur, I don't think that that should be, it should be on the agenda as such.
see that.
No, it's not on the agenda, so.
Can we correct it?
This letter was submitted to the president and to the clerk prior to the agenda being set. It should be an agenda item. It does take discussion, vote, or other action on an update from the municipal building task force. This is part of that update. It says we can take action on it if necessary. Up to you.
Yeah, I agree that.
But the letter was submitted and it should have been listed as, you know.
It should have been, you're right, and obviously it was an oversight on someone's part, maybe even mine, but since it's not on the agenda, I don't think it's something that we should put off until the next meeting. I hate to put it off to get this project going, but he is right, it's not on the agenda.
I agree with you.
So it is on the agenda. It's an update from the municipal building task force.
I agree with.
Can't be a new business. It's not talking about the-
Okay, is there anybody else was that it?
I'm sorry, John, I couldn't hear a word. I could hardly hear what was being said. I don't know if the problem is on my computer or your speakers.
Can you hear me?
I can barely hear you.
Okay.
It's his.
Due to an oversight, possibly on my part, regardless, if it's not on the agenda, you're correct, and that's not gonna be brought up. We're gonna save that until the next meeting.
Thank you.
It'll be probably placed on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Saying for future reference.
Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry?
Anybody else?
I do not believe so.
Okay, I'm gonna close the open forum. Moving on. What we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna flip flop, because we have a short agenda, but we have a very large executive session. We're gonna, as a courtesy to the people that are watching on Zoom, we're gonna flip flop. We're gonna go through the agenda now, and then we will go into executive session when we complete the agenda. Okay, so we're gonna start off with old business. Okay, everybody on the page? Old business, discussion by council or other action on update of municipal building review task force. Mr. Vadenais, I apologize for the mix-up. I did not forward that to the clerk. It's on me. But we're just gonna hold up for that for 1 week, for one meeting.
Don't apologize to me. I didn't send the letter. Chairman of the board sent the letter.
I know, but you were prepared and I apologize, so. Is there any,
He's prepared as well. The chairman of the task
I know
force
he is.
is here. It's not me. I'm not the chairman of the task force.
So it's a mistake.
Mr. Nordstrom, I do apologize.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on then from that one. Discussion by council vote or other action on appointment of municipal court administrator. The last meeting, we continued this appointment to this week. Captain Russell Ridge, he signed as a municipal court administrator by Chief Lafferty pending our approval. Would anyone like to nominate Captain Russell Ridge to be our municipal court administrator at this time?
I'll make a motion to appoint, Council as the municipal court administrator. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just on the discussion, Mr. Bureau, not in relation to this appointment, members of the council need to speak into their microphones because people in the audience can't.
Couldn't hear.
I'm having trouble hearing it on my own over here, but people, well, I'm hearing this from people in town, they cannot understand us when we're having a meeting, unless you talk into the microphone. They just can't hear it. I'm having trouble hearing Mrs. O'Hara, and I'm sitting in the same room. I can imagine what it's like out there. So we need to speak into our microphone so people can hear it.
Okay, yeah, her mic wasn't even on. Her mic wasn't even on. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Alves, and we have a second by Councilwoman O'Hara. Is there any further discussion on Captain Ridge? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. New business, discussion by council vote of action on town solicitor engagement agreement. Give me a second. All right, this is the same contract we've had with Mr. Igliozzi for the past 6 years. The only difference is a slight increase in pay over 6 years of approximately $1,200 over 6 years. All the responsibilities remain the same. And as we know, Mr. Igliozzi does go above and beyond and never charges the town for extras when he very easily could. Does anybody have any discussion or questions about the contract, Mr. Igliozzi? Okay, but anyone would like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can you make a motion for me to authorize this?
I'm sorry, yeah. Why don't we do that? I'd like to, would anyone like to make a motion to authorize the administrator to sign the contract, Mr. Igliozzi's contract?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Okay, right to the town clerk.
Discussion by council vote of other action on creation of a Halliwell project committee made up of town residents. Mr. Corriveau, you were requested this be put on the agenda?
Yes, I am. I think that, I think it's important that we, have to create a resolution to have a committee for the Halliwell project. I think that a lot of town residents, are looking for that. And I'd like to propose, to have, the town solicitor, create a resolution for a committee made up of 9 members. I'm thinking 1 member on town council. I'd like to be that town council member. 1 member from the planning board and 7 town residents. So a total of 9.
Okay.
May I ask a question? I realize I'm sitting on town council, but I'm also a taxpayer in this town, and having worked here, and my kids going to school here, et cetera, I think I have a vested interest to see what's happening, unless I can just attend and when something's being presented.
Well, we don't have to make a decision now as to who's going to be on the board, but they can only, I would only suggest 1 member of the council be on the board. However, Ms. O'Hara, if anybody, you'd be more than welcome to attend the meetings at any time, and I'm sure that we'll be taking input from anybody, even that's not a voting member.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, if I may,
Yes.
prior to this council, I had approached this subject back in August, September to start this process. And I think that's the understanding that we had. There would be 9 members, open to the public to have their input and to record their input. So that's pretty much the process that we had. But then we found out we're going on from our opinion and kind of put on the back burner. So we're into that. And I would like to ask the council that if you are making the appointments, that you also reserve an appointment for the town administrator.
Would that be a seat though on that voting member?
Not for me. I would like to, as the town administrator, have the authority to appoint a member, which is usually the case in all the committees that we form.
So
Yeah,
7,
that's fine.
could I just
Yeah, makes
clarify
sense.
that?
Yeah.
So there'll be 7 members of the town, residents of the town, 1 of which will be appointed by the administrator?
Yes. And that one person may serve on another board too. I just want everybody to understand that the administrator, I'd like to have the authority to appoint someone.
That sounds fair.
Thank you.
I just want to add one other thing. So the 1 person for the town board, I'd like to defer that to the planning board. I'd like to defer that to the planning board and let them select that person.
So 1 planning board member selected, recommended by
Correct.
the planning
Recommended by
board,
the planning board, correct.
and 1 appointed by the administrator, though.
That is correct.
Right, so the planning board can recommend someone, but
To you.
ultimately the council
Right.
will make the,
And really, the
Correct.
appointment power is either going to be always in the council,
Yeah.
Mr. President, or in the administrator. That's where the appointment power of any board or commission belongs.
all right.
So,
You need a term length,
I'm sorry.
term length. Term length, a term length for the members
That's
on the
well,
committee.
right, I thought we would, I would make it coterminous with the council, unless and until the council decides otherwise.
Okay,
So theoretically, their term would expire at the end of your 2-year term, and a new council would appoint the new members unless there's some other reason to, and it would serve until a duly appointed successor. That's the way the last commissions were arranged. It seems to work pretty well.
okay. Recently, we received an email with the contract for the project, for the Halliwell project. And if one thing I did notice was that it's a 1-year contract, and in the contract, they have two, the contract stipulates that they will meet twice with the committee. So it's probably a good idea to get going on this, because you could meet with the contractor early on, and then we can get an update as we go along.
Have we even entered into a contract with Weston and Sampson?
That has not been, no, I'm just saying that was mailed to us, that's not on the agenda yet for signing approval, but it's coming up next week, next week.
Mr. President, if I may, yes, 2 meetings with the public, but also 2 meetings with staff. And how you wish to stagger that is going to be pretty.
Well, he had, the contract stipulates that he has 2 meetings with the board, and then he has 2 public hearings in front of the council.
Yeah.
I'd rather see more meetings with the board. I'd rather see him meet with them more. I don't know if we can change that at this point. Because the contract is for 1 year, and it's a long time to only meet twice.
I would suggest that when we put the contract on the agenda for discussion, maybe we want to talk about terms that the council wants, and I can bring it to the company.
Okay.
If the council want to do that, that would be one thing we could do.
Yeah. Why don't we do that?
The other thing I just want to bring up before the council takes action is, I do like to get a feeling, or at least an understanding from the council of the scope of what you want the committee to do. And you always want the committee to have some guidelines about what you expect. And obviously, they're going to do certain kinds of fact-finding responsibilities and report back to the council, right? That's it. But what do you want their fact-finding activities to be?
What is a short-term solution that we need to look at? Because there's an immediate need on those buildings, on which ones are gonna stay, which ones are gonna be demolished, so we can secure that facility properly. And then there's a long-term solution, which is what I'm assuming Weston and Sampson is going to do. Part of their study is long-term solution. It's 10 or 15-year plan. It's not gonna be done in a year's time.
Correct.
The short-term thing should be done within a year's time.
Well, I think you and I are on the same page, because I remember watching a previous council meeting. I think 2 things can be going on at the same time.
Right.
One thing is that the board can be doing their thing and trying to figure out what we're going to do with the Halliwell property. But in the meantime, those buildings should not sit empty. That one, especially the gymnasium, should not sit empty. And for a little bit of money, we can turn that building into a community center for seniors and for other residents as well. Well, at the same time, project is going forward. Empty buildings, fall apart. And the heat can be on, people can be going in and out of the place, and cars will be parked in the parking lot. And it'll be less likely that the place gets vandalized. And for what it's worth, I did also have this conversation with Linda Tebow about this very subject just recently, and she said once this COVID situation is over, or at least under control, she would love to have the location for the senior citizens.
But it needs to be looked at and addressed.
Correct.
Because it's not a simple thing of opening and locking the door and being able to use it. There are a number of issues in that building that need to be addressed before we can go in there and actually use the building.
Right.
It's not
Correct.
properly set for public use right
Right. My own point being is we can do that and the other thing at the same time.
Oh, they should be going on at
Correct.
the same time.
Yeah,
This
correct.
one, that's what I was saying, this committee has
Short-term,
there's two
long-term.
pieces to it, there's a short-term and a long-term commitment to this project.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to have some idea. If there's anything else that the council person wants, what I will do with this draft, just like I did with the arts committee, is I will circulate it to the council. Obviously, you do not reply to one another, but if you have comments, send me the comments to the draft, so I can get the best draft before the council for discussion. And I'll circulate a draft within a day or so, yeah.
Okay.
And if there's something else people want in there particularly, please, I'm not saying this is all, whatever you want in there, I'll make sure it gets in there.
Yeah, Dave, I know one of the things that, that I was thinking is, as far as the committee members, with the town, similar to what we did with the art committee and with other open positions, have a specific date, that we'd like to, you know, have those inquiries in, by town residents, be it, February 1st, or, you know, I'm just thinking that's probably, pretty feasible, especially if you can turn that around pretty quick. And then at that point, then maybe not the first meeting in February, but at least the second, we then can look at that and decide whether or not we're going to appoint a selected amount of residents. Just so it's not dragging on, you know.
I'll have the resolution on your desk for the next council meeting to take action.
When you're making the makeup of this board, obviously they're all residents of the community, 9 residents of the community. Now, the makeup that they're talking about, one is an appointment by the administrator, one is a council person, one is a planning board member, which leaves 6 at-large residents, and they were talking about 7, but you need to reduce it to 6 if it's a 9-member board.
Right.
The administrator having an appointment to the board.
Got it.
So, then we'll entertain the motion to authorize the solicitor to go forward with the resolution as discussed.
Make a motion?
Second.
For the second, any more discussion?
Second.
Thank you.
You don't know?
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Before we move on now, then, this contract with Western Sampson is going to be on the next agenda.
Yeah, and now it's going to be, we'll go through it and make adjustments, and that's what the BOZ to make those
That's
adjustments.
what I was going to suggest, is that the OZ review this. Obviously, you look at the first page, there are a couple of mistakes that are not correct on it. So it needs to be fully reviewed by the solicitor, and any changes, you can talk with the administrator, you can go with you with any changes that you feel. If you want more meetings, ask for more meetings. It doesn't hurt to ask for it.
Yeah, I think that would be one.
If you think you need more meetings, then ask for more meetings, more public meetings, or more meetings with that board. They have their own work to do. It'll be independent of that board. They're gonna report to that board, who's gonna report that to us.
Right.
So,
Especially since they gave themselves a year on the contract, they gave themselves a year to complete that project. So it's a long time to only meet
there's a lot
only
of,
twice.
there's a lot of legwork to do.
Mr. President,
Yes.
that's a very good point. If you want to keep this moving to the next meeting, again, I don't want to give the council any more work, but if you have any specific concerns about the contract, just send me an email. There's nothing wrong with you sending me an individual email about your concern about the contract, so I can start that, bring that up with them, and then the final draft's gonna come back before you in 2 weeks, and you have to decide whether it's a final draft or not. So I just throw that out there. If you don't want to wait until 2 weeks to start having your input, you could certainly send me your concerns or comments about the contract.
Okay.
If if the council feels comfortable with that, there's nothing wrong with that. You just can't talk among yourselves about those.
Right.
Okay, so that's all set, right? We motioned and we got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, moving on. Discussion by council vote of other action on request for abatement / waiver of late payment charge penalties imposed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 44-5-8. Okay. Wardyga, okay. Request by Alan Wardyga for abatement waiver of late payment, interest charges, penalties imposed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 44-5-8 regarding estate located at 106 Brentwood Drive, Plat 8, Lot 146. If you look at your packet, I don't know, it wasn't in the packet, but,
His letter was in the back.
oh, it wasn't packet? Okay, because we got another one just handed out to us. So he's requesting.
I'm also here at the meeting. If you want to discuss it, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, in 1 second. So he's requesting that we waive the penalty of $135.37 as a result of him being late for his payment, his October payment. Is Mr. Wardyga, is he on? Sir, go ahead. Ms. Wardyga?
Yes, good evening, council members. I'm Alan Wardyga. I reside at 106 Brentwood Drive. I'm coming to you tonight to follow the process that's established to request a waiver of the tax payment. This was primarily due to my lateness, due to my preoccupation with an extended sickness and ultimate death of a close family member who resided in Connecticut. I wasn't here in the state at the time in order to do this, and of course, COVID has had an influence on that as well. So I'm asking for a waiver of that, and I would also like to continue to make my quarterly payments without penalty going forward.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, Mr. Wardyga?
Mr. Wardyga, I understand where you're coming from. I've gotten multiple calls from people in North Smithfield. One was 95-year-old woman, paid taxes faithfully, never late for 60 years, was in a car accident. Car accident, her car was totaled. I can tell you, I wish I was as shocked as she was with everything she paid in all those years. And she was asking at that time, when she discovered that, like, I'm late on my payment, she sent in, she called, she worked with you, and you did whatever you could do to help her. But she, as yourself, was requesting because of hardship. Out of respect, as I would do for you, if you had called me, I told her I would speak to our person and others. If we could do anything, it would be wonderful. And I hate to compare her with yours, because I think yours was also a hardship with a death in the family, as being a widow and being 94, and not being able to drive and do anything for a while that she has been doing. If we could do it, I am wholehearted for these because I think they're legitimate. And I see true hardship in both of them. It's something that everyone here has to consider, because a lot of people said, oh, you know, I'm late, the virus is out, things have been difficult. It's been difficult for all of us. Those are small hardships. I do consider yours outstanding, as I do Margaret's Bay. So I don't know what can be done at this point. I want you to know that I consider yours, as I read your letter, and I did read it, and I consider it a hardship. And there's death in the family, and let me tell you, everything else that goes with it, as I consider Margaret.
Thank you.
But whatever the decision is, I hope going forward that things concerning late payments will be changed.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. President,
Yes.
Finance Director, Mr. Jesus is prepared to provide more information on this particular request. Just, Finance Director, can you hear me?
Yes, may I speak? Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I received an email, forwarded actually from MJ Perry regarding, Mr. Wardyga, is that how you pronounce it, Wardyga? Regarding his, unfortunate circumstances, and I do understand the circumstances, and I just want to say I'm sorry for your loss. But unfortunately, I'm not going to recommend for a waiver on any interest, only due to the fact that, like Ms. O'Hara said, we are all affected by COVID. We have all been affected. This year has been horrible for every single person in the world. And I also want to clarify that Mr. Wardyga did say he was a 33-year resident here with only one time being late. I did find where a prior administration in 2008 and 2012 gave him a refund on his penalties, not only for real estate, but for motor vehicles and tangibles. Again, I am going to recommend that this does not happen again. It creates chaos because we get calls every single day with awful situations and awful circumstances that I do sympathize with. But right now, my recommendation is not to waive any penalties, please. And there is another circumstance where Mr. Wardyga does, and I would like to speak to him offline because it's not on the agenda, but there is another account that we need to speak
We don't
about.
have to air anybody personal business.
Okay. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, I will entertain a motion if anyone wants to make a motion to waive the $135.37 in late fees, I'm sorry, in penalties that Mr. Wardyga, he did already pay for the town, so we'll be getting,
Mr. President, can I just make a point about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just, I know there's a lot of discussion about waiver of interest and there is a little confusion. I just want the council to be aware, especially for those, sometimes there is a little confusion in using that term. The council would have to abate those because they're imposed by law and your ordinance. The law that Mr. Wardyga is referring to is enabling legislation, so the council can do option A or can do option B. This council passed an ordinance that says option B. There is no waiver permission for interest in your town, and there is no interest. You can abate his interest. I'm not saying you can't vote to abate, but you're not exercising the waiver provisions that he's referring to if you do that. Understand that you're abating taxes. Well, tax penalties. I know some of the councils that have been here for a while know that. I just want to make sure we're using the right term. It's not a waiver. You don't have a waiver provision right now.
right, we'd have to change the ordinance in order to.
You would have to change the ordinance and adopt the state law option. I'm calling it option A, right? So I just want to make sure that's clear. So it's about whether you want to abate this interest penalty.
The law is clear that if you miss your payment, there's a penalty. That's set in law. This board can vote to abate it and say, we're not going to charge you for it, we're going to forgive you, and we're going to abate it. That's the issue, the difference.
Yeah, the terminology.
We can't waive the penalty. Penalty is enacted by law.
Right. Okay.
But may I ask us something?
Please.
Would his case be any different than Margaret Fay, who's paid 60 years, not missed once? 60 years of taxes, not missed once. Got parlayed before car accident, and she called me, and after I told her, I advised her to pay the late fees come down. I think she did work with you. Did you get her payment? Since she can't drive, she was going to even mail it.
It's not on the agenda.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. But
I think, what everybody would have to be a case by case basis. I don't think that we could.
okay.
So if she wanted to go through the process, then she could come before the court.
She could send in a letter, she could send in a letter of request, just like Mr. Wardyga did.
Yeah.
And they all have to be, you know, everyone worries, oh, this sets a precedent. It doesn't. They're case by case. Every issue is different. Every circumstance is different. I looked at this and I read it, and I've known Alan for 30 years, 35 years. He served the town on boards and commissions in a number of different ways. He's been in business in town until he retired. But I look at this and he states that he had a death in the family that he had to take care of in Connecticut. I just went through this in September. It wasn't in Connecticut, but and things just fall off the table. Mrs. O'Reilly, you'll know that when someone died in your family.
Absolutely.
Something just falls off the table and you forget about it. And with all of the things that were going on in town, we actually pushed back. We didn't stop paying taxes in August like we should have. They were delayed. The second payment was delayed another 2 weeks. So actually, it wasn't even October 15th that it was due. It was due 29th of October. But taking his circumstances into consideration, I would be in favor of abating the penalty in this case because of the different circumstances that are involved in this.
Can I ask one other question?
Go ahead.
It was mentioned that he's had abatements before.
It was.
So is this a one-time pass, or can they do this later on?
You can do it.
As many times as
It's up to the council. Okay, so,
Just to keep this moving forward, then I'll make a motion that we abate the penalty of $135.37.
that's a motion.
In opposition to the finance director's recommendation.
Okay, that's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, the discussion, anyone for discussion? The only thing I would like to say is I get it, I 100%, I get what he's saying. Everybody that comes before us looking for an abatement, I'd like to help them out. And I understand what you're saying, that there's no legal precedent, but there is a moral precedent in the sense that once you start doing this, you're gonna start, I'm afraid that you're gonna open up the floodgates, just like Mr. Jesus was mentioning that. As much as I want to do that, as much as I want to help people when they come in, because they have very legitimate stories, somebody else can come along and say, my story is better than their story, and you gave them an abatement, and how come I don't get an abatement? So, yeah, there's no legal precedent, but there's a precedent. So that's all I wanted to say.
But in this case, the circumstances are, we're in this pandemic. The town council altered the payment schedule of abatements and the death in his family. So it's a multiple of things that come.
Oh, I understand.
And under a normal course of business, in a regular year, back in the normal, whatever normal you would consider, I would not be in favor of it. It just, there are circumstances this time that are different than most other cases. If you forget to pay taxes in a regular year, when you know that they do every 90 days, it's not the same. We altered the payment schedule as a council. Not this council, but the previous council. We altered the payment schedule because of the uncertainty that we had with the state budget and whatnot and everything. And so we got to a point that finally said it, and then he had a death in the family.
So does
I
anybody?
put it all together and say, okay, it's a special set of circumstances. It's not, oh, I forgot to pay it, and I don't want to pay the penalty now.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm totally in agreement with you. I'm just afraid of what it says. That's all.
Cynthia's raising her hand.
Can I say something, or I know you're,
Go ahead.
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you do grant it, I would like permission to put it towards another account that he owes.
Well, I don't know what account I owe.
We're not going to do that right now. That we're talking about one specific instance. I'm not going to start getting into people's personal situations right now. So we're just vote on this one agenda item. Okay, so we have a motion by Mrs. Vadenais. Do we have a second?
Ms. House.
Ms. House, you seconded? All right, any other discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
No.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biergard?
No. Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me just get my notes in order here. A discussion by council vote on other action on Forest Hill Schoolhouse, Architectural Preservation Group, change order number 2. 7. Oh, never mind. I have my notes already. Here. Number 2. Change order number 2. Okay, so we have a total of,
Mr. Administrator, can you shed any light on this? I don't see anybody there from the,
Rich Keane
yeah,
is
Mr.
there.
Keane's there.
Keane's there, for the emphasis of the light, but why don't we hear from Mr. Keane first? Mr. Harris is the one who submitted it, but you had paperwork in the packet, Mr. Vadenais? The explanation, yeah?
well, we have a change order.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
yeah, Mr. Keane is present, I think he's raised his hand.
Mr. Keane, did you want to speak?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I was, didn't realize I was recognized, but thank you, Mr. President. When this contract was initially, when you folks initially awarded this contract, it called for the replacement of 3 doors, 2 in the front and 1 on the side. Since the contractor began work, we reassessed one of the doors in the front and determined that we didn't need to replace it. All we needed to do was restore it. And so the change is to allow us to just restore the door and save $3,000 and put that, hopefully we can put that money towards more restoration that we weren't able to get into the contract originally.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, Mr. Keane?
Mr. Keane, what's change order 2 in the amount of $5,232? That's what you're asking us to do, not add alternate B. We're not looking to do that, are we?
Right. Right. The figures that we gave you are the new figures. So originally it was going to cost $8,000 for the roughly $8,000 to replace the 3 doors. Now it's only going to cost about $5,000. So it'll save just over $3,000.
Okay, so the change order is to the amount of $5,232.
Correct.
Entertain a motion to approve the change order number 2 for the amount of $5,232. We have a motion. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Under discussion, are there appropriate funds for this? I don't know who receives it. I don't know if Mr. Keane will receive it or if Elise will receive it. Just making sure that we, make a change that we need to. I'm not saying not to do it because you're in the middle of fixing the building. That's when you do it. But we're just gonna make sure that the funds are there.
We do have the money. We had the money initially, and we still have it. The change will just let us put the savings towards a different, more restoration that we couldn't originally get into the first contract, the original contract.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biergard?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes the regular agenda. So now We're gonna go back up to the top. Very easy to do that. Okay.
Mr. President, if we go back into the executive session and we go into closed session, can we note that when we come out of the executive, that no votes will be taken? Because it's not recommended for that, and so we'll only come out and adjourn, close and seal the minutes and adjourn, so that if these folks want to leave, they don't have to sit around for, I don't know, 3 hours.
Again, Mr. President, just so it's clear, the list of items is just because there's a new council, and there's no action required at all. This is just to make sure the new council is aware of the pending litigation.
Okay, so there'll be no votes taken during this executive session.
We're not asking for any action.
Okay.
Just so people know that they can log off, we're only gonna come out, seal the minutes and then adjourn when we get it. Just so they're aware.
Okay, so we're gonna go to executive session, discussion by council of other action, Rhode Island General Law 4246-5. 82 session pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work session pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. Prime Healthcare Services, Landmark LLC, and Prime Healthcare Services, Landmark MOB LLC versus Sarah Few in her capacity as tax assessor of the town of Smithfield, Rhode Island. CA number PC-2018-5702. Number 2. Prime Healthcare Services, Landmark LLC, and Prime Healthcare Services, Landmark MOB LLC versus Michelle Mariani in her capacity as tax assessor for the town of North Smithfield, Rhode Island, case number PC 2019-10662. Number 3. Prime Healthcare Services, Landmark LLC, and Prime Healthcare Services, Landmark MOB LLC versus Michelle Mariani in her capacity as tax assessor of the town of North Smithfield, Rhode Island, case number PC 2020-00895. Number 4, Prime Healthcare Services LLC and Prime Healthcare Services Landmark MOB LLC versus Michelle Mariani in her capacity as tax assessor of the town of North Smithfield, Rhode Island, case number PC 2020-0428. Number 5, John J. Russo versus Town of North Smithfield. By and through the North Smithfield Town Council, Paul Vadenais, Paul Zielinski, Claire O'Hara, Terry Bonamoli, and Douglas Ogier Jr. Case number PC 2019-5003 at Providence Superior Court. Number 6, solar voltaic installation project, moratorium, solar overlay, Green Development LLC, DBA Wind Energy Development LLC, and Ruth S. Pacheco Living Trust versus Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Cynthia DeJesus in her capacity as Finance Director for the Town of North Smithfield, Robert Nigeria, Paul Pasquarello, Michael. Say it again. Amalfitano, Mario D'Annunzio, Vincent Marcantonio, Sr., Scott Martin, Gail Denomi in their capacities as members of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Case number PC 2019-9395. Again, Number 8, Silver Pines Condominium LLC versus Town of North Smithfield. Case number PB-20045242. Business calendar. Number 9, Narragansett Improvement Company versus Town of North Smithfield. Case number PC 2008-7468 and PC-2008-6474. Number 10, Morris Pratt versus Town of North Smithfield et al. Case number PC 2013-2528. Morris C. Case number PC 2013-4527 Pratt. Number 11, Jane Doe versus Town of North Smithfield, case number PC 2014-6081. Number 12, Rockcliffe Farm LLC versus Town of North Smithfield, case number PC 2017-0962. Number 13, Jason Brodu versus Town of North Smithfield, case number PM 2018-6290. Number 14, Bruce and Mary McGee versus Town of North Smithfield, case number PC 2017-5173. The Providence Superior Court and Bruce and Mary McGee versus the Zoning Board Review of North Smithfield, case number PC 2017-5631. The Providence County Superior Court. Number 15, residents at Sladeville Mill LLC versus Town of North Smithfield LLC, case number PC 2018-2240, Providence County Superior Court. 16, Jason Richer versus Town of North Smithfield, case number 15-162-M-PAS. 17, Jason Richer versus Town of North Smithfield, case number 18-578-JJM-PAS. 18, Dominic Pratt versus Town of North Smithfield at Al Superior Court, case number PC-2013-4527. And Mark Morris versus Town of North Smithfield at Al Superior Court, case number PC-2013-4528. And number 19, appoint attorney-client confidential communications. I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second, is there a second? Second. Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Okay, give me a
We're
second.
now in executive session.
Wait, give me a second. I gotta get everybody out.